Hey there, and welcome to exercise number 68. In this one, we need to write a function named objectToMap that receives an object as a parameter. The object can contain other objects, array of objects or primitives, or basic primitive values. Now, the function should convert this object and all of its nested ones to maps and return the result. Below we have an example. So if we have an object describing a user with a name, an age, a job, and the job is another object, a salary, a title, and an array of languages that Bob codes in, because Bob is a JavaScript developer. So if this is our input object, then the output should be a map that looks like this. So we have a map with 3 entries, one for each property in the main object, right? Name, age, and then job is another object. So for this one, we have another map with 3 more entries, right? Languages, which is in an array, salary per month, and title. So you can see here we have initially 2 nested objects and an array inside the second one, and the output is 2 nested maps with an array. So we just convert the objects to maps. The arrays, we leave them as they are, but again, if we have an array of objects, we need to convert those as well. Below, we have another example. So if we have an object describing another user, Lily, I mean not a user, another person, and Lily has some hobbies, right? Reading, swimming, and karaoke, and she does those hobbies daily, weekly, or monthly. So we can see we have an object and then an array of objects inside of it. Now the output should be a map that has 2 entries at the top level, the name, which is Lily, and the hobbies. Now the hobbies is going to be an array, but inside each array we have converted the object to a map. So now we have an array of maps. So I hope you kind of get the idea, right? We start with an object, we go recursively through it, and whenever we find objects, we convert those to maps. If you want to solve this exercise for yourself, which I highly encourage you to do, then click on the link in the description. If not, keep watching and we're going to solve it together. I'm going to go here into the right side, into the code area. And the first thing I want to do is let's see how we would convert an object to map, but just the top level, right? Let's just do it the top level. So I'm going to say const result is new map. And then I'm going to go object.entries, right? I care about the keys and the values of the object. Dot map, and here I don't need the double parentheses, right? So object.entries of object, this gives me an array of arrays. So here I'm gonna have key and value. And to convert it to a map, I'm just gonna do result.set, and I'm gonna use the key I have from the object and the value. And then we're gonna return the result. Now this should be enough to convert it, but just the top level again. So let's just test it. So I say console.log object.toMap of, let's say, name Bob and age 42. So here we have, and by the way, I know in the console of a browser, a map doesn't show like this, but the package I'm using, this is how they display a map, right? So we can see here type map, and then we have the data, and to find out which is the key and which is the value, they're in pairs, right? So 0 and 1, this is key and value, and then this is another key and another value, right? They're in pairs of 2. So you can see we have here name Bob, age 42. But now if I also take the job, so let me just take the entire object from here. From here. Right, so I have an object, name, job, the job is another object, salary and title, and then I have this one here and the age and this. So if I take the entire input object from the left, we can see we have name Bob, right? These are 2 pairs of key value in the map, but then the object for the job is not converted because again, we converted it just top level. So how are we going to do this? Well, we need to do here some recursive programming. So I need to say, hey, if this value is an object, then I want to also pass it through this function. So I'm going to say if type of value is object and value is not null, because null also has a type of object, then I'm going to do result.set key, and the value I'm going to pass it to this function again. So I'm going to convert it to a map. Otherwise, I'm going to do this. So now if we look at our map, we should see the inner object also converted. And we can see here, We have the inner object, which is also a map now and has languages, right? And we can see the languages was also converted to a map, which makes sense because the type of an array is also an object. So it tries to convert our languages to a map, and it uses the index as keys. So we're gonna need to fix that. But then the rest looks good, right? Salary and then title. So you can see we went now deep one level, and actually we're going unlimited levels deep because we're recursing through this object. Now you might have noticed we have a bug in our code, and that is related to arrays, right? I don't want to convert this array to a map. I want it to be an array of strings because that's what it is. So I'm gonna need here to put another if, and I'm gonna say if array.isArray of value, then I'm gonna do something else. Otherwise I'm gonna convert it to a map, and otherwise I'm just gonna set it. So if it's an array, let's see, let's just set it initially. We're gonna need to do something different, but let's just do this. Let's look at the output, and we should see that the languages is now an array. So this looks legit. However, if I take the second example, so let me take this object here, and let's do it like this. So we have an object with hobbies, which is an array of objects. Let me just prettify this manually. And then we have the name here, Lily, who's doing all of this, right? Let's look at the output. So we have hobbies, which is an array of objects, and then the name Lily, but those objects should be converted to maps as well because they're nested objects. So this doesn't work. We're going to need to do something here, and actually we're going to need to process the array. So let's create a separate function process array, and let's do array. And here we're going to actually see if we have objects, we're going to pass them through the function again. Then if we have maybe nested arrays, we're going to go through each one and so on. So I'm going to say return array.map. We're going to go through each item, and we're going to see if it's an array, and actually I'm just going to copy the ifs here. If it's an array, then I'm going to return process array of item, right? If we have an array inside an array, we process the nested one as well. Otherwise, if our item is an object and is not null, then I'm gonna return objectToMap of item, right? So we convert it to a map, and otherwise I'm just gonna return item. So this function takes an array and looks inside, right? We have an array of other arrays. Okay, let's process them as well. We have an array of objects, the second if. Okay, let's convert them to a map. We have an array of just like other things like primitives. Okay, we just return them. So this one you can see is also recursive in a way that it calls itself, or it calls the objectToMap function, which can call this one. So we're kind of going in a loop here until we reach the end of the object. And now that we have this, here we can say result.set key and then process array of value, because I know this is going to be an array. And if we look at the result, we should have hobbies to be an array of maps, and that's correct. And then inside each map is correct, right? Has a name, reading, frequency, daily, right? So it has a name and frequency props. Now we can test with even more levels. So let me just do objectToMap, and let's just do here an items, which is an array, and then inside another array and another array. And here I have an object with name Bob. So we have a map which has a, So we have a map, right, which has items, and then inside is an array of one item. And inside that array, we have another array and another array. And when we reach our object, voila, it has been converted to a map. So this looks legit. Now let's test our solution, and voila, it works. Cheers, and see you in the next one.